anyone who has experienced the loss of a mom, you go through years of feeling like you're suspended in air without having a safety net to fall on.
Hello, and welcome to this edition of Love Speaks. I am your host, LaKisha Carvil. And I am so excited for this Mother's Day edition because I'm sitting here with one of my BFFs, one of my best friends on this side of heaven, just to talk about the topic of motherhood, what it means to be a mother, and also what it also means to be a daughter. And so I know today as we sit, this is Mother's Day, and I want to just tell every mother, you are valuable, you are needed, and you are appreciated. And oftentimes our roles can somewhat be overlooked because we wear many hats. But in whatever hat you're wearing, let me tell you, you are doing a phenomenal job. I know, I didn't always know, let me say that, what a mother was in the aspect of being a mother. But I was able to find out with having two adorable sons. And also, but I always knew what it meant to be a daughter because my mother, who did a phenomenal job, was a phenomenal mother, even with her mistakes, even with her shortcomings. She did the best she could. And I am grateful and appreciative for my mother, who's no longer here with us. And so as we discuss today, I have my good friend, Patricia, Pat, Laurenceau, here with me today as we explore the topic of motherhood. I welcome you today, Patricia.
Thank you so much for having me.
We have been friends for many, many years, and I just to kind of build in regards to the journey of our friendship. We've had career experiences together. We had friendships beyond careers, going into sisterhood. This is one of my sisters, and as I set to kind of collaborate with her with this session, with this topic today of motherhood, it's both near and dear to both of our hearts because I know my friend who experienced loss with her mother at a very young and tender age. But even as I reflect at that loss that you endured at the age of 12, losing your mother, I kind of somewhat reflect because I was reminded at age 15 when I sat down and did the calculation. My mother, although she was physically alive, she was still not yet present because she endured some pain in losing her only son at the age of 7 years old. So that death, that grief caused her to not live and not provide some of the nurturing or help in the development as a young teenager at the age of 15. And so it was still somewhat, I felt the void or the absence of my mother. And so during this time and season of motherhood and Mother's Day, tell me, what did that look like for you?
So for me, and it's funny because it's often a subject I don't really discuss because I think, being an entrepreneur, a lot of times I indulge in the activity as entrepreneurship that a subject as sensitive as this is not one that I'm completely vulnerable about. But as it being Mother's Day, being able to share that experience at 12, you think about you being in middle school, you're going through the transition of teenage years, you're trying to figure out who you are, and you're hit with the tragedy of losing your mom. My mom was 44 at the time, and I'm the oldest of three. So having to be the oldest of three, now having, to step into the responsibility of taking on where she left off was a lot.
Yes, can only imagine.
And so you literally, anyone who has experienced the loss of a mom, you go through years of feeling like you're suspended in air without having a safety net to fall on.
Yes.
And you don't know what life is actually going to look like. And you walk with this grief that you try to figure out how to navigate and begin to breathe again, despite the fact that you have lost an anchor,
Yes.
essentially. Because a mom to me is like an anchor in your life that you no longer have there. That's the person that nurtured you, that showed you love, that took care of you, that sacrificed herself just to be available to you.
Yes.
And now that safety net is no longer here.
Yes.
So for me at an early age, that was a lot of navigating and not knowing how to process that experience. And it took years. And it showed up in so many different ways in my life over the years.
I hear that as, from the individual perspective.
Yeah.
You being your own young, somewhat preteen.
Yeah.
Because at 12, we're getting ready to transition into our preteens where we're now developing, and there are conversations that are normally had with our mothers at that time because our bodies are developing and we're going through a different phase that we didn't go through in our earlier, child years. But now as a preteen, having to navigate that. But also you did mention having siblings who were younger than you are, that not only did you have to navigate your own individual emotions, but also being able to guide them as well in their emotional response to the grief. How did that affect you as the individual at 12 years old, that little girl that's on the inside of you, having to deal with the grief, but still having to mature faster so you can help and assist your brother and your sister to also navigate through their grief?
Yeah. It was at the time, it's funny because I didn't have the language. I just knew that I had to step up. I knew that I had to help. And I think being the oldest, there's always this sense of responsibility that you automatically have, that you have to be the one to help solve whatever the issues are, even if it means you having to put your own needs aside to be available and there for them. Not to mention the fact that I'm watching my dad now become a single dad.
Yes.
And so helping him navigate through that and taking on the responsibility of, let me try to make it easier for everyone, where I'm showing up for my dad, I'm showing up for my sister, I'm showing up for my brother, and putting my own needs aside because they needed me more. And having to navigate and not having the tools at the time on how to manage all of that and still be there for myself. For a long time, I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know what that meant to show up for me. Because as long as everyone was good, I'm good. As long as you're okay, And so just being able to show up for them was more important at that age than to show up for myself.
That's where I often hear most, young people who've lost their mother, especially, both mother and fathers are very important in our lives, but the mother for a young girl is someone who passed along a lot of the information that we need to develop and to mature. And so just talking about you individualistically realizing what was needed, at what point in your life did that occur?
I'm still trying to figure it out. At my age, and mind you, and just even for me now, I had just turned 51 in January, and so you're talking about a 12-year-old little girl, and there's still aspects of me at 51 now that still am learning after all these years how to show up for Pat. Because it's like so much of my growing up, even my early adulthood years, was always about what I needed to do for someone else. It was always about, and I think it's not just so much the aspect of just losing my mom at such an early age, but also the role of being the oldest sibling as well. So you have those two dynamics that are going on. and you're trying to figure it out on your own. So then it shows up in my marriage, it shows up with raising children, it shows up at work, it shows up in business, because it's always, I'm accustomed to putting everybody else before me. So now at my age, I've realized, no, you have to shift that dynamic.
Yeah.
And I think having children has taught me that. Shifting that dynamic where I now begin to prioritize myself and doing the things that matter the most to me, even if it means me having to let people down. And that's
Yes.
okay.
It's okay. It's
Yeah.
okay. It's okay because I think what it does, creates a pattern of neglect
Yeah.
for you and
Yeah.
for anyone in that role. Because if you are, and I guess that's why I said I know you and I over the years, we bond so much because we have so many stories that are similar because I too, I'm not the oldest, but I was positioned in that position because
Absolutely.
my two older siblings had children earlier than I did. So when my father, passed away, and my mom was a single mom, it automatically put me in that position to help raise my younger siblings. So they became the priority for me, and I put myself. So instead of graduating, going off to college, I chose to get a job so I can stay home and help mama again, taking care of my siblings, making sure that they are provided for, that they are nurtured. And so with those experiences, I found myself for years as well catering to others, making sure everybody else is okay, making sure you are right, giving to everyone else, and kind of somewhat self-neglecting. And just like you have testified and said the same, it was not until you have transitioned into
Yeah.
parenthood and now you've been able to identify, okay, I'm continuing this pattern, but now with my children
Yeah.
and into my marriage. So it's all a part of our story. It's
Yeah.
all a part of the transition. And it is needed today during this Mother's Day, season and this time for us to reflect. Where are we as women? Where are we as a mother? Is there anything in our life that we can adjust and adapt to make sure that we are not neglecting ourselves? I truly believe that taking care of the ones we love should be our number one priority, but it should not be over self, because
Correct.
if it becomes over self, then you're neglecting you're neglecting your mental health. And when you neglect that, I saw that in full play with my mom. Because of everything she endured, she neglected her mental health, and she neglected so much, still trying to raise us. But it was broken to an extent that it did not come across the way that it would be something that we as women can say, I learned from that, I grew from that, I developed from that. Now I can say that because I've learned to take the bad experiences and develop and grow for them. But as a teenager going through those phases, I was like, mama, something's wrong.
Yeah.
Something is broken and it needs to be fixed. And I could not follow the story that she was painting for us, because it was hurtful and it was painful at sometimes because of things she would say out of her own hurt and her own pain. And so just seeing that modeled before me, it kind of left somewhat of a sting, because both you and I, as we can relate, became parents. We got married later in life. We were, in our late 30s when we got married, and then both became mothers in our late 30s when others had babies at 20, and they're, and so now we are sitting 50 with, still children who are 12 and not even, graduated high school. And so it's different for us in regards to our parenting right now. And so how does all of that you've been through now to this current day, as a mother to your daughter and to your son, how has that played a role in your parenting style today?
Oh my God. It's I never anticipated what motherhood would actually teach me. Though I learned so much from my mom in the time that she was here, and a lot of the memories that I have of things that she taught me over the years, I still hold on to today. And I see myself implementing a lot of the things that I learned from her, as I was getting, into my teenage years and whatnot. But when it came down to my kids, and I often say this, I truly believe when you have children, children are like a mirror of you, areas
Yes.
of you that is still unhealed,
Oh, yes.
and they unearth those
Oh, yes.
experiences. And
You preaching
so,
a word
no.
now.
And so when I had my daughter, and my son and my daughter is totally different in terms of their personality and what they bring. But I do understand and I recognize my daughter is very affectionate, very touchy feely, always got a 20 hugs a day and this and that, which in the beginning, it made me very uncomfortable
Yes.
because I don't need all of that.
Yes.
But I truly believe that God felt that I needed it.
Yeah.
And so he would have me have a daughter that would break that wall down for me.
Yes.
Where when I needed, she knew the moment I needed a hug. You know, I wouldn't even have to say anything. I'll just walk into a room. She's like, Mom, come here. Let me get a hug. And I'm like, here we go. And now it just becomes second nature where I'm looking for her for the hug.
Yes.
Because it's broken something in me that I didn't even realize I needed.
Yes.
And then my son, who's not as touchy-feely, affectionate in that way, words of affirmation is important to him. So the words that I speak to him, I realize I need it for me. Sometimes, when you are considered the strong one, a lot of people think that you don't need words of encouragement, you don't need the support, you don't need the affirmations. But he reminds me, that I still do need it, even at my age now,
Yes.
and hearing it that, Mom, you're doing a good job. Thank you.
Yes.
That means everything to me. And so God has a way of he'll have your kids be that thing that you need that was missing all these years.
Yes.
To comfort you and to help you to heal in a way that you didn't even know nor anticipated that you needed healing in.
Yes, I absolutely love that our children, they are the little us.
Yeah.
That's definitely a true statement, and most people, we become so agitated with our children.
Yeah.
Because it is the us that we're trying to avoid.
Yeah.
And just as you said, it is the us that God is trying to get us to see. And I like the fact that you said that, you always, or people will always assume the assumption that you are strong.
Yeah.
And so my question to you is, where do you think that assumption comes from?
How I show up. It's just how I show up, because I remember after my mom died, I remember saying to myself, I didn't want my immediate family to appear as if we didn't have it together. Because I would hear conversations of, oh my God, what are they going to do? Oh my God, how are they going to navigate life now? Oh my God, this is the worst that could ever happen to a family, especially now. Here it is, my dad, this single dad with 3 young kids. How is he going to make it? So the perception and the conversations about how we appeared now was like, I don't want people saying that about us. And so now for me, internalizing that and not having the tools to manage that, I immediately was like, no, we got to appear as if we have it together. Yes, we've had this loss. Yes, it's tragic, but we're not falling apart. And so now the way that I showed up was as if everything was together, even though there were moments in life where I felt like it was literally all falling apart.
Yes.
And I did not know how to navigate. So now at this age, I don't even care.
That's it.
It's like, look,
That's it.
Let's
Let's drop the
fall
persona.
where
That's
they
right.
may, whatever it looks like, this is what it is. And I am just going to make the best out of what I have. And it's taught me to appreciate the life that I have, the relationships that I have, and not be so concerned about how it appears in the eyes of others anymore.
Yes.
and letting all of that go.
Yes. And I can relate because it somewhat is a defense
Yeah.
to everything that is taking place around you.
Yeah.
You know, with my mom, there was so much that was going on even in our childhood and growing up. So there is a defense you kind of put around you that you want to protect your name, you want to protect your family, you want to protect yourself. But as you mentioned, at this age in life, guess what? I don't care what you think anymore. I don't care
Exactly.
how you feel about the situation because it is what it is. And we have to now, as mothers, appreciate where we are
Yeah.
and appreciate the journey that it took for us to get here. Because I think a lot of parents or a lot of mothers, especially, are kind of hard on themselves, kind of beat themselves up because my story doesn't look like their story, and I'm not that parent, and I can't do for my child as they do for their child. But what I have discovered that we all have our own unique experiences, and God is so strategic, if
Yeah.
I may say, and because He has our destiny formed before we were even in our mother's womb. He knew the children we will parent. He knew the issues that would come with the parenting. He knew the make of our children. Just as He knew for us with our parents.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a oops, I messed up. I let her mom leave too soon. Or oops, I messed up and allowed their parental story to be damaged. No, God knew. He foreknew, and even with His infinite wisdom, allowed us to go through the journeys because it prepared us to be the strong women that we are today. That now we can transfer into our children the wisdom, the courage, and the strength to continue to fight. I often say this, and I don't know about you, but I often say this: my journey was not easy, but I am eternally grateful for every single experience. I'm grateful for the days mama didn't do it right. I'm grateful for the days she did it right because I'm able to learn from every single experience, every single experience. So for the mothers, whatever your experience is, learn from it. Because there's no manual.
No.
There's no manual for it. In most cases, we're going to parent out of what is familiar to us. The playbook that we were given, the parental story that was modeled before us. Mama did it this way, I'm going to do it this way. So I find myself doing a lot of things. When I was a child, you pretty much shunned. Oh, I can't stand it. I can't wait till I get grown. And had these conversations with yourself. And why mama do it this way? And my mama. And I find myself now doing and saying everything that mama said.
Yeah.
Because it is a pattern that literally talks to us, that helps wire us to become the mothers that we are today, to give our children. Because as children, we don't know what we need. We only think we know. Most kids think they know what they need. I don't need that, and I don't care for that, and I don't. No, you don't know you need it until you need it.
Exactly.
And so in raising our children and just identifying that, I think it's so important to us as moms today, especially in this 21st century, because we're raising children that we were not raised like.
No.
Things that they have access to, we didn't have access to. So we have to be able to pivot and be able to shift, not only just with the times, but in our mental processing, in our thoughts. So how is it today? Because I always look at it like this, and I say this: yes, there may not have been your biological children, but you parent almost your brother and your sister, in an era which is different from today. And so it's just as I had to somewhat discipline and be the rod of correction for my siblings who were younger than me and help guide them and teach them the ways. This is how you do this. But how is that different from raising your actual children today?
It's totally different because you're helping from a different perspective, and you're not their actual parent. So you feel some of the pain that they've experienced. They too, I know my siblings at the time, they didn't have a language. My brother was 5 at the time. So it's like, and for me, he was more like a son than a brother, because he was so young. So I was showing up at the school, talking to the teachers and making sure he was doing the homework, making sure he was passing his classes, things of that nature. So it was like dealing with that was a weight and a responsibility, which I think it lended to me waiting so long to have kids because of that responsibility. I was like, when, and just like you were saying, when kids are saying, "Oh, I can't wait till I get older." Older is ghetto.
That's
Like
it.
there's it's just ghetto. There's Trust me, if I could go
It's
back,
overrated.
it's overrated. If I could go back to, my late teens, early 20s or whatever, I would rather do that. I mean, but it's like it's totally different. And because I waited so long and having children, I'm much older, more mature, have lived life, has experienced stuff, had time to actually work on me
Yes.
and kind of dig through some of the rubbles of my own experiences. I think it made me much better equipped
Yes.
to be a mother who was present, because that's one of the things I remember before I having my daughter, which is the oldest. I remember saying, I always wanted to work for myself before having children, so that way I was there for them, because I understood how important time was and how significant it was, especially when you have a family, just being available. My parents worked. They were immigrants from Haiti.
Yes.
They came here learning a language, learning a culture, learning, a new way of doing things, and then raising kids. So for them, going to work every day was what they did. And so them not being available for certain school activities, that was the norm. I didn't want that, so I wanted to be able to be available. When I was going up to the school, checking on my brother, it was because my dad was working and he couldn't go. He's the only parent, making sure he's providing for 3 kids.
Yes.
So I had to show up for him. And so dealing with that responsibility, it was a lot, but now I see where it plays a significant role in my life now, even as an entrepreneur, even as a mom. Certain things I tell my kids, don't worry about it, I got it, because I want them to understand, I want you to be a child. Don't rush to be grown. Trust me.
Yes.
You got plenty of time for that.
Yes.
Just enjoy your life as a teenager, as a kid, navigating through life and knowing that I'm here whenever you want to have a conversation.
Yes.
So that is huge for me right now.
Yeah. That sounds like a wonderful place to
Yeah.
be, because it is maturity and development. I often said too, and we would always joke about this in our singleness, without
Yeah.
being a parent, and we'd always discuss our nieces and our nephews and children, and our answer was always beat them. Beat them. Every time somebody said, well, so and so beat them, and it was always the number one answer. But that's not the answer.
No.
That's not the answer. And I've learned that as a mom. And so sometimes we try to speak on topics and concerning matters that we have not experienced. And I think the experience makes the difference, because now that I've experienced motherhood, just as yourself, and experienced it with maturity,
Yeah.
I've allowed God to work on me and to do the work in me.
Yeah.
So now I don't repeat what mama did and say it is okay because mama did it, So I'm allowing God to refine my parental style and my skills, and allowing me to have, because it was that age where we came from, both of us around that same era, mom and daddy had the final say. It's not going to be any questions. I said it, I meant it, that's it, that settles it. But we are in a different day, and we have to allow our children to understand that we are approachable. You can bring your problems, bring your troubles, bring them to me. I don't want you to bring them to anywhere else. I want you to bring them to me. But stripping away from mother, stripping away from the mom, that Patricia, what about the business leader and the mentor? Who is Pat as a business leader and a mentor?
Now I could tell you totally different than who I was in the beginning, because like I said, a lot of who you are, you bring into every aspect of your life. So initially when I started my entrepreneurial journey, I wanted to be the one that kind of steps in and I'm going to help everybody and I'm going to help them do whatever it is that they want to do, not holding them accountable to their own responsibility of figuring out and navigating through entrepreneurship themselves. Now, as I've matured and worked in business for a number of years and have worked with clients over the years and things like that, my stance is different. Now it's just really, let me just empower you. Go do what it is that you need to do. It is no longer my responsibility anymore to help you navigate. And I think what's important too, and just to go back, even in reference to, you know, when you're raising children, no different than in business, having the conversations, being open enough to discuss the hard conversations is important. Sometimes, you know, when I'm speaking with a client, being able to tell them the truth about where they are is important. No different than when I'm talking to my kids, sometimes being open and honest about where I was early on as a mother, or even just losing my mom, how that felt, not being afraid to have those conversations. So, one, you have a much more grounded relationship. Because even in business, when you're working with clients, being open and honest with them allows you to have a much more grounded relationship with your clients as you help them navigate through entrepreneurship and things like that. So it's taught me to look at things from a different perspective. And being available to others, but not making it my responsibility anymore.
That's wonderful. Oh my, that's good.
Yeah.
You can say that again.
It's not my responsibility.
It's not your responsibility.
It's yours to do. You have to do the work.
That's right. That's
and right. For me, understanding that I had to do my work. It's funny because even with my kids, there were times where I would ask them, how am I doing as a mom? And baby, that grade book was not looking good. Because one thing about children, they will not lie to you about how you're showing up.
No, they will not.
And they were very clear that I was a yeller and they don't like it. And so I had to be open enough to receive what they were saying and then make the necessary adjustments to nurture my relationship with my children. And so all that yelling and carrying on that I was doing, not realizing that it was the little Pat showing up in fear in those moments. And that's how I responded to certain situations. And I had to be very mindful of how it was showing up in business as well. Because one thing, and I tell entrepreneurs this all the time, how you show up in business is a reflection of how you show up at home.
That's right. That's right.
If I see you showing up inconsistent, you're not accountable to your responsibilities as an entrepreneur, you're flaking off on clients, you're not doing what you committed to do, it tells me this is how you show up at home with your family and with your children. And those things need to be addressed. Those things has to be addressed in order for you to flow in a way in entrepreneurship that you will see the success in business overall.
And that's one thing I've always admired, you know, about you, being able to balance not only just being an entrepreneur, being a mother first, but being that entrepreneur that you devoted time to. Because sometimes, you know, we can feel as mothers, you know, I can't have it all. I can't have it all. I can either be a mother or I can be a professional or I can be. So what do you say to those individuals who's sitting that may be saying to themselves, well, I don't have the time, I don't have the capacity to do anything except be a mother?
It's not, one thing is that it's not easy, number one. Number two, don't compare yourself to what anybody else has going on, because your life is completely different from someone else's life. But most importantly is understanding where you are. When before having kids, before being married, anything like that, I would go to entrepreneurship networking events at least 3-4 times a week. I had the time. I had the time. I could do that. I get off of work and I'm at another event. I worked multiple jobs and didn't have family and responsibilities, this and that. I had the time to do that. But when I started having kids, I had to decide where did I want to put most of my effort. And for a season when the kids were younger, I could not go to as many networking events. And I had to be okay with that for a season. And I knew that what was most important to me was that the kids needed me, and I had to pour into them for those years. But I remember my dad would always tell me, they're not going to be young for long.
That's right.
That time goes by fast.
Very fast.
So embrace the season that you're in now. Pour into what you needed to. It didn't stop me from focusing on the business. I just could not do it at the capacity that I wanted to at the time, because most of my energy needed to be on the kids at that moment, right? And so as they got older, I remember, that light bulb came on, and it's like, okay, they good with school. They're doing what it is that they need to do. Now I can put more time into the business. And I immediately shifted. I think what happens is sometimes we get caught up in everything else we have going on. And sometimes it's in other relationships that really is not conducive to where you're trying to go. So I think being clear on where is it that I'm trying to go to, and is the relationships that I have right now conducive for that growth?
Yes.
Because sometimes, like you and I would have, I'll call you or you'll call me and say, okay, let's meet up for lunch. We might do it maybe 4 times a year.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Whereas before the kids, we may see each other more often, but understanding there's no hard feelings there. I get it. You busy, I'm busy.
Yes.
But if we can get 4 good times in a year, we're good.
We're good.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And so understanding where those relationships are as well, and being okay with that.
Yes.
And just knowing that, and it's funny because like I said to you, I was sharing with another friend, I said, listen, you want to see Keisha, come to church. Because right now she got a lot going on. And it's okay, because I respect where you are. I respect your family. I respect what it is that you're building. So if I want to see you and I know that I can't see you for brunch right now, it's just a season. I'm going to be at service on Sunday and I'll see my friend.
Yes.
You understand what I'm saying? And it's just understanding the different seasons of your life.
Yes, I
and
love that.
And being okay with where you are right now, and knowing it won't always be this way.
I absolutely love that. Number one word, stop comparing yourself. I think it's that comparison that a lot of, individuals, male or female, kind of live in, if they're doing it, I should be able to do it, and why I can't do it. But when you understand the seasons and the times that are appropriate for your life, then you don't try to make something work. That's where the frustration comes in. The frustration comes in because you're trying to make something work that you have not been graced. I believe in every season there comes grace.
Absolutely.
There's a grace for that season. So where it seems difficult and hard, because the grace is upon you, there's no struggle. That's why I always tell people, you really want to know if you're out of sync and if you're out of season, where is the grace for it? And if there is no grace and you feel the struggle and you maybe need to back up off of it, reassess, and maybe even change your direction, because that means you're not seasoned, you're not in the right season, and you need to adjust or adapt, because wherever God puts us, if it's the business, the mothering, the mentoring, whatever that season of your life is, God grace you for it. Yeah. And that was a season, just like you said, when I became a mother, it's a mother of a a premature baby. I had no room for anything else. Between the doctor's appointments and follow-up care and all of the therapies, there was no time. So everything else got put on hold. And other people were still moving forward. They were going to school and creating businesses. But I had to stand still and know that that was not my season. But God graced me that I didn't break down or give up as I was taking care of my child, to make sure he's getting all the services that he needs so he can grow and reverse some of the developmental delays. And so understanding that is so important. But I also want to ask, how important is it to have a network, a community of friendships as a mother?
It's huge. One thing I will say is that, especially when you've experienced loss, right? Especially, from the perspective of losing your mom, you have trouble trusting other women. And that's an area of struggle where, because the pain is so deep that you don't want to be in a vulnerable space to trust another woman and then feel a sense of pain like that again.
Wow.
And so a lot of times you have to be mindful of doing your own work and healing, where you accept people where they are.
Yes.
You accept people where they are and understand when they come into your life, they're not coming to answer every issue and problem that you have.
Yeah.
I might be the friend, the person that, I want to go out for brunch every weekend. You may not have the capacity to do that.
That's right.
But it doesn't mean that I have to now sever my relationship with you because you can't keep up with what I need you to be in my life at that particular time.
That's right.
It's not fair.
Yes.
So it's important to understand that you're in my life for a reason.
Yes.
And understanding what that is and accept that for what it is.
Yes.
And not expecting more from people than they have even the capacity to give.
Yeah.
So even having the community is important.
Yes, it is.
You got to have a community of people, but also be available to others as well. Yeah. Give what it is that you need.
Yes.
Give from the perspective of what you need as well, and be open enough to accept people where they are, and then understanding that you need help. One of the biggest struggles I had over the years is admitting the fact that there are moments that I need help.
Yes.
And asking for it.
Yes.
Because I'm going to figure it out.
Yes.
I got it. I'm going to do it on my
Make it
own.
work.
Don't worry about me. I can take care of it. Why? Because that's the pattern that I've created.
Yes.
But being able to open my mouth and say, you know what? I need help right now.
Yes.
I need you right there for me right now. And even if it means I just need you to sit there. It was a struggle for me to get to that point.
Yes.
But having the right people around you, being able to discern those, you don't need that many people.
You don't.
But discerning those that are around you, but having the community is important, because sometimes you need somebody who is able to tell you the truth about you.
Yes. Yes.
And you being open enough to say, you know what, you're absolutely right. I need to work on that.
Yes. And I've heard, just in time, that there's 3 levels of relationships. And I believe that is imperative in even mothering, parenting, and every level of relationship. There's those that we look up to, those who we see eye to eye, and those who look up at us. And so I think that keeps us grounded. Yeah. It keeps us grounded because as a mother, in that dynamics of the relationship, I should be able to have someone I can look up to. And it might not necessarily have been my mother, which I do look up to my mother. A lot of people take the bad that their mother and they say, I can't. My mom was a crackhead. She was on drugs, and my mama did this. My mom was the best mom. I tell you, you'll never have me to say anything bad about my mom. And some things was not enjoyable growing up as a child, but they still made me who I am today. And I learned so much through those experiences. But I was able to still look up at her. And other mothers that are around, whether it's mothers in the church, mothers in our community, friends' mothers, that you're able to look up and say, wow, I like the way you do this. There's always something that we can glean in life. That's why the relationship, I believe, is so important. Because even just sitting, sometimes I sit and I look at other individuals. Like you said, I'm a yeller too, top of my lungs all day long, nonstop. And because that's what? My mom was a yeller, so I inherit the yell. And so I too, just as my kids say, like, oh my God, it's one time the whole entire house was like, oh, she home.
There she goes.
Yeah, there she go. Because everything is getting ready to shift. Everything she's gonna be on her. Clean that up. Get that up. Do that. Do that. So it's like constant. But I've learned because as I sat and what they said was not enjoyable to them, I was able to, okay, let me stop. Let me, God help me control my tongue. Pray. And I would literally ask God to help me to become the best that I can be to my family, knowing that I am different, but looking at the other mothers and say, you know what, they can still, I've seen her say, pick that up without yelling. So it works. It works, but that's where that connection comes in. Everybody should have somebody. And if you don't have somebody, then you have to reassess yourself. Because we are not, even God, if I can say, said, man shall not be alone. He God himself, but I don't think it was just talking about from the relationship of husband and wife. He just mandated for man. It's better two or better than one. Yeah. So it's always better to have that connection, not just in marriage. It's not good for man to be alone. It's not good for humanity, not just man being a male figure, but humanity to be alone. If you are alone, that's a very, very bad place to be. So I just, so much you've said today that just really, continues to challenge my thinking. That's why I love to have conversations with you, because you are excellent in your craft. You're excellent in your craft. I always admired you as a mother and as an entrepreneur and as a business owner. So just talking about your business, we're going to get this last segment. I won't pin that in there. I know it's Mother's Day, but we have so many mothers. Like I say, wear multiple hats. We have mothers. That's one thing it is, they juggle. A lot of people joke with me and say, you always got a big bag. I say, because I'm used to carrying so much, because you got so many tricks in the bag. You got everything in the bag. Like you said, I'm not going to call nobody. I'll make it happen. There's something in my bag that's going to help me make this happen. And so with the multiple hats, you wear, I just want to pull a little bit more on that entrepreneurship, that business owner. What made you go?
I can honestly tell you, it was nothing but God, because I remember being 3 years old, holding meetings in our bathroom with my sister, with my dad's briefcase in hand. I always knew entrepreneurship was in me, and that was at 3. I just didn't know in what area. And so for me, I didn't like being told what to do. And then when I started working at a job, the thought of them telling me when I could take my vacation, oh, you can't go to lunch right now because so-and-so is at lunch. No, I'm hungry now. Like, why I got to wait for them to come back to go to lunch? I just didn't, that never sat well with me.
Yes.
Taking time off, I had to ask for permission because I wanted to go and do, I didn't like it. Yes. That whole concept just never made sense to me. And so I like to be free to do what I want to do, but entrepreneurship comes with a cost. Yes. Because it really has you deal with you in areas in you that you didn't even realize, that you needed to kind of fine tune in order to do it well. So it required you having to be consistent. It required you having to show up. It required you having to be a solution to someone else's problem. Yes. So the very thing that I was doing for my family, God showed me how he had already put it in me to do it for the world.
Wow.
And so even in the very thing, and that's why I say nothing you go through is wasted. Nothing you go through is in vain. Everything has a purpose and an assignment attached to it. Yes. And it's for you, your responsibility to discover what God placed in you and then begin to work that thing. Yes. That's why you can't allow fear to stop you, because all the experiences that I went through, all the trauma and the pain and the losses was all for a reason.
Yes.
Was all for a reason. And in that, God has allowed me to take it. Entrepreneurship has always been a part of who I was.
Yes.
And so now being able to help others navigate and figure out, like, no, you got it. I know you're working a 9 to 5 and I know you don't like it, but let's figure out a way that we can make this happen, because I'm always accustomed to figuring out a way to make something happen with my family. So we're going to do this as business owners.
Yes.
You know, and so it's just been a part of who I am. And everyone who knows me knows Pat is about the business.
Business.
Always
Business.
been, and that will never change.
Yes. Yes. Yes, indeed. And Avery, even that's why I said, even my earlier years, it was always on you. You presented yourself as a CEO.
Always.
You know, you always dressed to impress, not just because you were going to work. And I would always look at you and I'll be like, boy, Pat is decked out. She's dressed from head to toe. Everybody else got on their T-shirts and jeans, and Pat got on a full suit blazer and all pantyhose and heels.
Everything.
I say she is born.
Yeah.
And that's what something I heard you say. Our pain leads to our purpose.
Absolutely.
And when we choose, because it's a choice, when we choose to ignore the pain or either suppress the pain, we are now rejecting our purpose.
Absolutely.
So if we don't embrace it, I know it's painful. So I'm saying this to a mother today, a woman that's under the sound of our voices, that is watching this podcast. Your pain, the experiences, every single one of them is a part of your purpose. And I too, I'm like, okay, God, why you chose me? Why you didn't choose someone else? Why do I have to endure this? All of our experiences are different, but yet they're a part of the path and the purpose. And then when you really sit down and in hindsight and everything has fully evolved and manifested, and you're like, okay, I had to go through that in order for me to get to this. And so if we didn't endure some of the hardship that we endured, you wouldn't have become stronger. You wouldn't have become wiser. I'm only a wiser and a better parent today because of the course I had to chart. You know, and as I said, having a child who was a micro preemie, a child with special needs. My whole entire parenting skills had to be elevated because, first of all, when you talk about someone who's coming from a large family, but my mom never had any premature children, any children with special needs. Some of us may have special needs for other reasons.
It might be
They'll get me, but some of us may have special needs for other reasons, but not because it was as a result of a birth,
Right.
you know.
Right.
But with all of that being said, it is that environment.
Yeah.
It is that environment that I was in, you know, going through everything that I had to endure as a mother with a special needs child, a micro preemie. And I'm just throughout the entire, God, how can I? And then now, because I endured that, I said the other day, I say, God, after all the pain I experienced, I don't think there's nothing that I don't think that I can go through.
Listen.
Because I lost mother, I lost father, I lost, you know. And so, God, if you brought me through all of this with this purpose in mind,
Yes.
I thank you.
Yeah.
Because now it has made me more capable
Absolutely.
and able to do what God has put on the inside of me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, friend, I thank you so much.
Thank you.
I thank you so much for being
you.
here and sharing all of your experiences. Again, thank you so much for joining us on our virtual podcast, Love Speaks. We pray and hope that this session, this podcast is informational to you, that you heard something that was life-changing. Do us a favor, like it. Click the notification button so the next time we're on, you can jump on and hear what is being said, because this is information that you can take into your future. Again, thank you, and we look forward to seeing you next time.